I have personally found, and I've mentioned this like a million times, like I'm a black man that currently lives in Idaho, and I've been in leadership roles. One of the things I've struggled with is trying to navigate the code switching piece of things. Because
Mm.
for me, I talk a certain way, shoot, I act a certain way, and I found myself always having to define things. I had to re-explain stuff or repeat myself, and I just got to a point where like, you know what, when in Rome, I'm gonna do as Romans in some situations. Do you have any type of tips or strategies that you can give to folks that have been in these spaces where it's like, look, I'm me, I'm who I am, but then after a while, you just get so much, I don't want to call it pushback, but you just find yourself spend a lot of time having to re-explain stuff and try to get folks to understand where you're coming from and show this is why I'm coming this way. Do you have any strategies or tips for folks that are in these type of situations?
You need to know when to call it and know that is this actually the space for me?
Okay.
Right? Is this a space where I can actually be successful and can actually move forward? Not every space is designed for us to be successful. And I feel like so many of us stay within spaces for our students and for the love of our students. But if we are not well, we cannot help our students be well.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really incredibly important to actually do an assessment to say, do I feel like I can actually get the work done in this current situation? If the answer is yes, then I would say, again, not feeling as if everything is on you.
Mm,
And so I would go back to the idea of like, who is going to be the someone else that right? You don't need 10, 15 people that are doing this work with you. You just need one other person. If you
okay.
can just get one other person that is going to be your person, have a true, honest conversation with, strategize around, be able to be who you're truly are around. I think that is just integral part of being able to be healthy while doing this work at the same time. And I think it's also recognizing the fact that it is also really easy when we get into leadership roles to also take on that whiteness as well. And so then we start perpetuating
Mhm.
what we actually are trying to dismantle. And I think it's also, again, that's why I always say having that other person, because they can be the one like, what, how did you just agree to that? Or why did you not say anything to that? Or why is right, like, why are we okay with this decision? Because sometimes we get to the point where we're comfortable, and sometimes we prioritize comfort over doing what is necessary for our students.
I'm glad you said it because I was just in as you were talking about the coalitions and all that, I was like, me personally, I'm a pretty introverted person. So like I don't want to necessarily grab a bunch of folks because I'd like to be in my own space. However, you did say just one person is all you need sometimes. And
Yep.
because I was also thinking about other individuals that are like, man, I feel like I'm by myself as like I'm the only one about this life in general. Like it's just me. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, if you could find someone, I always say, even if you feel like there's no one in your school, within the staff, colleagues, peers that are available, you could, I mean, social media and so much out there right now these days, you put a hashtag in, I bet you find somebody. So
Yeah.
like, and so maybe it's a virtual connection. I mean, I have a lot of friends that I keep up with to this day that I've never physically met them. However,
Mm.
they have been available for when I've struggled or when I'm in a certain headspace or whatever it is. That mental
Yep.
health is very important, and I can reach out to those individuals on FaceTime if I have to. So I think all of these things that you're saying makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this because I'm gonna get a little bit more specific because sometimes it sounds all nice on paper when it's the idea, oh yeah, just don't suppress your anger, grab you some friends, some colleagues and things. Let's get a little specific because I've been in situations as a school principal where let's say a racial matter happens. So I identify as a black man and let's say some black kids are maybe there's a teacher or students that are saying some things or there's some sort of discrimination or some racism, flat out racism that's taking place. And
Mm.
I identify with the students. And so in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, well, how do I handle this without coming across as maybe too strong with this? Or maybe I'm not handling this. There's this pressure of how to handle certain racial situations when I am the only person or a small population of that identifies with the individuals that are going through this. And let's say it's a white student that did something to the black student. How do I handle? So what type of strategies maybe could you provide for folks that are in those type of situations? Again, as we're trying to these spaces.
I would first say that there needs to be a coming to some type of consensus, is recognizing the fact that what's actually the purpose or outcome that I'm looking for in this interaction, and then being really clear with the person, that whoever the other person on the other end, if it be students, being teachers, whatever it may be, what is their purpose and outcome that they're looking for, and being transparent about the fact, like, can I get us there, or are we not going to get there? Right? Like, just being super honest, like, this is what you're looking for. Do we actually think it's going to happen? And then I try to have a set of questions that I regularly tap into when in conversation. So questions that will just open up the conversation versus shut it down, and kind of like, please tell me where is it you're coming from? Please explain what is it that you're looking for? Tell me more. Really open-ended questions to be able to hear the other person's perspective, and hopefully for them to be able to hear mine as well. And recognizing the fact that a lot of times when we have interactions, everybody's going to be happy at the end, right? We're not going to be able to please everyone, but are we leaving this conversation at least closer to where we started it? And at least closer, and the willingness to continue the conversation. Because I always feel like if there's an incident that happened, it's a microcosm of something bigger. So how am I actually then using this particular incident to like actually get down to what actually is the root cause of what's happening within my school or within my district that is causing this to happen? And that is actually where I need to spend my time and my energy, is actually getting to the system level, or otherwise I'm going to get pulled into dealing with all these little fires, which are valid, which are important, but actually are not going to make any type of change to the circumstances in which my students are experiencing. I always try to be realistic about the conversation and the outcome, and making sure everybody understands what's a realistic outcome, and then making sure that I'm not just going to the next fire, but I'm using this as a data point to figure out what's actually the real cause of what's happening.
I love the idea of finding out what are some realistic expectations. I think about, look, this situation happened to my own children. Let's say my own son received that verbal insult, or my daughter received that kind of treatment. How would I respond? And so I'm trying to take my personal side of things out of this, how I would handle this as a dad. But then I also have it as a black man and as a black kid. And so there's like all these things that are running through my mind as far as how do I handle this. And I like that you said really focus on the outcomes and what are the intended outcomes for it. And at the end of the day, just like courageous conversations, would expect non-disclosure, something like that. I'm terrible. I'm messing up the quote.
Accept and expect non-closure.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay. At the end of the day. All right. So that's good. Okay. Thank you for saying that.
No problem.
There's another thing that I think about is there's a lot of, and I've experienced it. So that's why I said your book, everything just hits home for me, because I'm like, yo, I need to grab me a copy. Because I can think about my time thinking like I have to prove myself. I'm not a diversity hire. I'm supposed to be here. I was the best candidate. You know what I'm saying? So are there any words of encouragement maybe that you have, or again, strategies or anything that you can give to someone who's in the maybe imposter syndrome mindset, and they're thinking, I don't want to appear as if, again, I'm just a diversity hire, that I want to make sure that folks know that I'm supposed to be here, but there's all these pressures of doing well, or I have to work twice as hard, that whole mindset. What kind of tips, strategies, or encouragement can you give in those situations?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just acknowledging the fact that you, at this given point within our school systems, you probably are working twice as hard. So, right. That's a given. Yeah. Right. So I'm not gonna try to act like, oh, you're not doing that. You know, you're right. Like it's what's happening. But I think it's also is this idea of being really, really in tune with who you are, where you're coming from, and where you're trying to go, and also not changing who you are in order to get to where you want to go. And so that first competency around demonstrating self-awareness. I talk about the fact that this is a lifelong journey, and I know for me, like, even though I spend years writing this book, I'm still on the journey of really understanding who I am, and particularly around in the leadership role. Like, so what I gave in the book is this Bobby Haro, I think his name is. I'm messing it up. It's a cycle of socialization. Just this opportunity to really to take a step back and to see what are all of the inputs that was put into me in order for me to get where I am, and how are all those influences were on me, and then how does that show up in my leadership, and how am I perpetuating it, or how I'm supporting it. And I think it is a matter of really being clear about who you are as one step of it. And I think that going back all the way up to the 10th competency, I talk about the idea of really being really clear about your values and having a really clear kind of like liberation, like what is my mission statement that I have? And if you're able to kind of do those in conjunction, right? So I'm super clear about who I am, and I'm aware of who I am, as well as I'm very clear about what my values are and what is it that I'm trying to go to. What's my liberation statement, and how am I ensuring that I'm holding that container for myself, and noticing and recognizing like all the things that may push against that container, and what's going to be my response to that. So a lot of times, again, in leadership, sometimes the decisions that are being asked of you or they have to make may be not in alignment with your values. If you're a district leader and you're being asked to consolidate schools or close schools, that may not be in alignment with your values. So you're going to have to make a decision. Is it okay for me to be in alignment, to make this decision that may not be aligned with my values? And what am I going to lose as a result of that? Or is it, I am not okay with this right now, and I'm going to have to make a different type of decision. But if you're not really aware of all of these pieces, I think it's very easy for us to get trapped in a cycle or in a hamster wheel of just trying to survive and or trying to live up to some type of expectation that is not part of the expectation of who I am. And so I think that's super important. And it's something that I think we always have to be in check with, and always have to kind of go back to see, is this actually, am I playing true to who I am, or am I just doing this because of what this system that I'm in is asking of me?
Oh, okay now, Mary. Don't bring the fire like that. Okay, okay. So good. That was good. That was gold right there. So we're gonna end it there.